I feel kind of silly saying I'm excited to read books because they wouldn't be on my TBR if I wasn't excited for them. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Jessie, and today I'm going to talk to you about the 5 books I'm putting on my February TBR. So February is Black History Month, and there are a few readathons going on that at one point I was interested in joining, but kind of think about my experiences with readathons last year. I'm not very good at them, so I'm not going to be joining a readathon. But because of that, and because February is also Black History Month, I want to make especially sure that I prioritize books by Black authors this month. And because of that, all 5 books on my TBR are books by Black authors. And another thing that I have a problem with doing is I tend to make a TBR that I'm really excited to read, and then as the month goes on, my mood changes and I read something else. And I normally finish a good bit of the books on my TBR, but I don't always finish my entire TBR. So in February, I'm going to try to focus on finishing my entire TBR, whether or not I deviate from the books on my TBR. For example, I can still read books that aren't on my TBR, but if, it gets to the middle of the month and I notice that I've made little to no progress on my TBR, but I have read a ton of other books, then I need to kind of cut back and focus on my TBR. But anyways, I guess let's get started with talking about the books that will actually be on my February TBR. The first book is The Deep by Rivers Solomon, and I first heard about this book in summer 2020. And I got a copy of the book for Christmas, so I'm really excited to be reading it. And I'm glad I will be reading a physical copy because after reading some reviews, some of the people who read the audiobook said the audiobook was a little bit more difficult to keep up with, or that the experience just wasn't as good as they might have had if they had read the physical copy or even an ebook copy. So I am excited to read this book. The Deep kind of takes place in a world where during the slave trade, Black women who were pregnant were thrown overboard, and I'm assuming their babies were born underwater and kind of evolved into mermaids. And now it's in the future sometime. The mermaids, for the most part, live a really idyllic and carefree lifestyle. But they have one person to act as a historian and who remembers all of the pain and suffering and some happy times too. But the historian is primarily there to kind of ease everyone's minds from all the bad stuff that is part of their past histories. And so in this book, the historian is Yetu, and it's kind of becoming too much for her, and so she ends up going to the surface world. And I guess she learns a lesson there. It's a really small book, and I'm really excited to read this book. I have been interested in this book since the summer, and I'm glad I'm finally getting around to it. The next book I'll be reading is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, and I got this book for my birthday, and I'm glad I'm finally getting to it. This book follows Sydney, and she lives in Brooklyn, New York, I guess, and the area she lives in is kind of being taken over. People are moving out, and their homes are being sold, condos are going up, and it's becoming more expensive to live there. And she's kind of disappointed because, she's lived in this neighborhood her whole life. It's really important to her. So she starts this tour where she kind of goes around the neighborhood and tells everyone, I guess, what's important about it, or explains the neighborhood to people. I'm assuming probably to the newcomers, and maybe to like people who've lived there for a long time too, to kind of help them remember what they love about the place. And then this guy named Theo, who's actually one of the newcomers, ends up being her assistant and helping her. But as they kind of go through the tours and deal with their neighbors, they kind of learn that are their neighbors really moving to the suburbs and having happy new lifestyles, or is something worse happening? And I'm really excited about this book. Next is Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas, and this is one that I've been really excited to read ever since I saw the cover reveal sometime last year. This book follows Maverick Carter, who was Star's dad in The Hate U Give, and he's still a teenager in this book. It takes place in the 90s. I'm really interested to see how this goes. Maverick, his life is a little bit more difficult. He is still part of the King Lord's gang. He actually, I think, sells drugs for them. His mom is working 2 jobs because his dad's in jail. He's kind of being part of the gang to help his mom, I think, help her with money, and maybe so she doesn't have to work as hard. And then also, he's got good relationships with most of the people in his life, but he also recently found out he has a son, and family is incredibly important for him. That's why he's working so hard to take care of his mom. But now he also has his own kid, and he's been given the opportunity to kind of straighten out his life and make things to where he doesn't have to be in the gang, but the gang is still there and it's hard to leave. And so I guess it'll be his story about how all of that goes down. And I'm really excited and interested to read this book because in The Hate U Give, you get a little bit of Maverick's backstory. I wouldn't say it goes into depth or anything, but Star kind of tells you a few things that happened whenever he was a kid. So I'm really excited to actually see it from Maverick's point of view. The next book I'll be reading is Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds. This book has been on my bookshelf for a few months now, and it's one that I've been a little intimidated to read. I don't know why. I think it's just the whole time travel aspect of the story that kind of stresses me out, because that's not an element I'm sure if I like. For example, I know for sure I did not like that element in Again But Better. So this book is about a kid named Jack. The inside flap dubs him as the king of almost. There are so many things he almost gets, including a girl named Kate. He essentially almost, like, I guess they start falling in love. They meet at a party, but she ends up dying. And somehow he gets a chance to go back and redo it all and maybe help prevent her from dying. But by doing that, someone else has to die, and he kind of has to figure out if the consequences of saving Kate are worth losing someone else he loves. And I think it's gonna be a really interesting story. I kind of feel like it has the potential to be sad, and I don't think I've seen this one very many places, and I kind of wish I'd seen this one in more places so I'd kind of know more about what to expect from people who've already read it without reading reviews. I'm excited to read this one. I hope it goes well. I'm really excited to kind of see how the relationship plays out, what happens whenever he saves Kate or he somehow prevents Kate's death, whether or not he plays an active role in saving her. So the final book on my February TBR is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I haven't decided yet if I will be reading Legendborn as an ebook through Libby or an audiobook through Scribd, but I'm kind of leaning more towards either reading it straight through Libby or maybe reading along to the audiobook. But anyways, this book follows Bree, and her mom died, and now she is in college. And one night on the university, she witnesses, I think, a demon or someone killing a demon, and someone who is called a mage tries to wipe her memories, and it doesn't work. And whenever that happens, memories from her mom's death are unlocked, and she kind of realizes there may have been more to her mom's death than what she really knew, including this group of people on campus who call themselves Legendborns. And she ends up trying to get initiated into the group, and I think she works with this other guy who has his own reasons for disliking or distrusting the group. And I am really excited to read this one as well. I feel kind of silly saying I'm excited to read books because they wouldn't be on my TBR if I wasn't excited for them. But this is another book I'm really excited about. I've heard so many people talk about this book in the past few months. I think it came out in September, and I think I've consistently seen it show up on my Instagram feed at least once or twice a week since the book came out. I am a little nervous to read it though, because I recently saw someone review it and say that as soon as they finished it, they felt like they need to read the next one now, and the next one isn't out yet. So that's the only bad thing about reading a series that isn't completed. Anyways, those are all of the books on my February TBR. What books do you plan to read in February? And if you've read any of the books that I've talked about, what do you think of them? Anyways, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and I will talk to you on Thursday. Bye.